You're listening to the Coop Homeschool Podcast.
This is your podcast for community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling. I'm Mandy.
And I'm Jessica.
And this is The Coop. So today we're talking about camping, how to do it with your family, also how to do it with other families, and how to make it special. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yes.
So let's do our scoop on the coop.
Let's do it.
We went camping.
This was the second time that we've camped together. Our families went last year and it was super awesome, and we went to the same place again this year and had the same camping spots, and it was awesome. And we invited along another family this year, a part of our Coop group family, and it was so much fun.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
I think between the three of us, we took like 80 pictures.
Yes, and many of them are on our Instagram. So if you want to know what our weekend was like, please go check out the Coop Homeschool Instagram because you'll see it all.
All right, so let's dive into camping then. Okay, first let's talk about the benefits of camping. I feel like most people know this, but let's just mention some great things about it. So there's free play.
Yep.
Self-directed exploration.
Right, activities, just complete open-endedness for those kiddos. You know, they can ask to go on a hike. They can ask for help finding something because this is new territory. It's not just our house where we're like, you know, all the possibilities, you know, like go do it. This is, okay, let's go on a nature hunt or a scavenger hunt or whatever it is, and mostly go do whatever you want.
I mean, we just sat around and as long as our kids had their little trusty walkie-talkies and one of us had one, then they could contact us at any point. And then at night, even when they would do that, they could wear their headlamps and or their glow stuff, and they still could go out and explore, and we weren't worried about them.
No.
So then there's also problem solving.
Yeah.
There's, I don't know if you want to call this a survival skill, but they got into burying things. So this last time I did leave one of my horseshoe posts buried somewhere on the campsite because they didn't think to mark it. But what a great lesson they learned, because I think your daughter was like, yeah, we didn't think to put a flag on it.
Right, they marked it.
But the wind blew.
Right.
And like, we weren't thinking the wind would blow.
And they were trampling all over it, you know, and they didn't put a marker that would last.
Yeah. So, but they learned a skill there, and we didn't have to teach it.
Right, but we also didn't know they were doing it.
That's true.
Or at least I didn't. So we couldn't offer them any helpful tips for that. So, you know, there's the benefit to them just learning by doing and from not having our involvement and interference all the time. And then there's also the things that would have been more convenient had we knew that they were doing that.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't have lost that, but it's not the
I
end
mean,
of the
I
world.
did tell them it belonged to my great-great-grandmother, but I was just joking, but...
Right. Her plastic horseshoe stick.
Probably from the Dollar Tree, you know.
Yeah.
Also, there's what I love about it. Camping builds endurance.
Yes.
So it gets you. We've talked about this before on our blog. Comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes.
So camping's very uncomfortable, especially for people who didn't grow up camping all the time.
Sure.
And you know, you don't have all your what you consider your daily necessities.
Right.
And
comforts.
Yes, and now they're just comforts. They're not necessities, right? So just learning to work with others in a 24/7 way.
Yeah.
And nowhere to go. I mean, except to go hang out by a tree or something.
Right.
You know? So I just love that it teaches them to get comfortable and find fun and satisfaction while being uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah.
That's one of the best skills they can have. And then also it just pushes them physically and emotionally.
Absolutely. Yeah. They might stay up later, or just being out in the sun all day, or expending all that energy at a high altitude. You know, there's all kinds of things that factor in. So it pushes their little bodies a little bit different than they're used to. And then just kind of helping them manage that skill. You know, it really gets them in a different mindset, you know, and so helping them have the tools to recognize how they're feeling and then help them along with that.
Yeah, and then like communal Assistance. So when we got a new tent a couple months ago, and so we put it up a couple times.
Right.
And my 10-year-old was the one helping my husband with it when we put it up at our house, and gave him practice so he would learn and know what to do.
Yeah.
So when we were putting up, we called him over and he helped us, put all those little posts together and stick it through and pull it through. He knew exactly what was expected of him, what he was supposed to do, and then he went back to playing. And then slowly, I'm really glad to have the kids get more and more involved.
Yeah.
So by the time they're teenagers, it's just par for the course.
Right.
They're loading and unloading the bins. They're helping everyone put up the tents.
Yeah.
And then they're reaching out to other campers too, hopefully, and saying, hey, you need any help?
Yeah. And that'll be the interesting thing once it's maybe not such a novelty to go camping with another family, is that the setup process becomes unique to their own family, so that you really do involve them, because our girls were almost impossible to pry apart for any amount of time whatsoever.
Sophia did go help and get a trash bag though.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
Yes. Dad made sure she could go do that.
I know. I didn't have my 8 or 5-year-old do anything, but I was glad at least the 10-year-old was helping with the main thing that you have to set up.
And I think, our families haven't had the opportunity to camp solo in a while. I haven't. My family hasn't done that. And I know it's really nice when my kids have other kids, because then they aren't always looking to us to solve their boredom or to help them, which is not a bad thing. It's fine for us to be involved with them the whole time, but it's just something magical about camping. I had my sister when I grew up camping, and so she and I would get into mischief or ride our bikes nonstop all day at our campsites. Yeah. So, her sibling being so much younger is just hard. She can play with him for a while, but he doesn't really play along.
He's not ready yet. Yeah. But in a couple years, he'll be there.
It'll be a little different. And then she'll be 13. So.
Yeah.
So there we go.
As if.
Yeah, exactly. But that's okay. But, I definitely do want to have her camp with just our family, because I do want her to feel comfortable setting up a tent. That's a skill that I learned as a kid, because we camped multiple times every single year in multiple types of camping. We did desert camping in the winter, and then we would do lake camping in the spring and fall. And then we would do mountain camping in the summer, at least once. And we would go for a week.
Oh, my word.
Yes. And sometimes, off and on throughout my childhood, we had different kinds of camping setups. We had a travel trailer for a couple years, maybe just 2 or 3.
I think I would definitely invest in some good ground pads to sleep on if I was doing that.
Amen.
And not my little blow-up Costco $20... it's not 2-inch pad.
Yeah, my husband and I decided we're really grown up now, and those kinds of air mattresses just don't cut it for camping.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So there's some of the benefits. Oh, yes. You know what we should do in the future as they get older is tell the kids, you get to plan one meal.
Oh, yeah.
And they plan the meal and they deliver it, even if it's just hot dogs.
Right. Or they have to set up the tents.
Yeah.
Or, definitely assigning things. As they get older and it's a little more age appropriate, definitely. I love that benefit of giving them that kind of survival skill. It's not that crazy, Well,
and it just trains them for the future. When they're in college or when they graduate high school, or even in high school, we want them to be able to go camping.
Yeah.
And not always have to rely on us to do it all.
I remember going camping for the first time as an adult by myself. I may have only been 17, but I remember having to get my first tent and all the gear and stuff. And it was super minimal at first, because I was super used to camping, so I didn't need a bunch of stuff, and I didn't have children, so I didn't need the entertainment and the fun little magical things. It was basic, and it was so much fun for me to feel confident. I didn't feel worried that I was forgetting anything, because I've done it so much. It was a habit.
Right.
I knew exactly what to pack. I knew how to pack it, and it was easy for me.
Right.
And setting up a tent, even if it was brand new to me, it was fine. It was easy.
Right. There's not all those mental and emotional barriers that you have to work through. And then when something new comes your way, it's just one new thing and not a whole slew of it. So one more thing I want to mention about the benefits of camping is the educational, the book educational aspect of it, whether it's a nature study, if you're like a Charlotte Mason type of person, bringing a telescope to study the stars, or you want to do nature journaling, or or learn before you go. You could learn about the history of fire, and then you can present while you put the fire together. You get it lit, and then you can present about fire and how it works and all that. So you can always add to that if you want more structure in your camping experience and more of a book educational moment, like an academic type of thing. Yep. So, okay. So then let's go on to how to camp.
Yes. This is a fun one. You want me to dig in?
Sure.
Okay. So camping, there's the obvious how to camp. You got to rent your campsite, reserve your campsite, or know what kind of walk-ups are available. The last 2 years, we ended up doing walk-up sites, or first come, first serve. And they were actually really great sites.
Really great.
So we were happy to get them, and it was awesome. But you want to make sure that you know that stuff. You need to know what's going on at your campsite. Do you bring your own wood? Do you buy it on site? There's so much to know, and so there's those basics that are really easy to find once you settle on where you're going. And then there's the obvious. You need somewhere to sleep. You need something to sleep on or in. What's the weather like? So there's the very, very minimalist style. You're going to need to eat food. It doesn't have to be complicated if you're fine with sandwiches and hot dogs and instant oatmeal. But do you have what you need for that kind of stuff? So, the how to camping becomes very personal. Because there's a whole array of how it can be done. It can be super minimal for those people who just like the simple. They don't want to overpack. They don't want to overplan. And also
budgetary wise, you might have to start minimal.
Yeah, peanut butter sandwiches are fine. Chips are fine.
Yeah.
S'mores
hot dogs
are
every
fine.
night.
Yeah, it's easy. It's fine. So it's definitely a personal choice. But once you get comfortable with the basics, then you can really build upon it, because then there's the comforts that make camping easier.
Yeah, and well, like just for example, the chair. Everybody needs to have a chair.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the first time I went camping, when I don't even think my third child was a twinkle in my eye. Yes. But so it was just two of us. I think Ruby was still eating dirt at this point. And we had chairs, but I didn't realize chairs that sit really low to the ground are not my preference.
No.
It's harder to get up and down, but those are our beach chairs. Right. So then I realized, camping chairs. So camping chairs sit up high, like a normal chair at a dining room table, and I realized I preferred those. And then I realized my mom got us these chairs that have these trays that are connected to the chair. They flip up and they have a cup holder. Yep. So really awesome about that. I have a place to put my phone, my drink, my plate, my book I'm reading, and it's all right there. And then I realized last year, next time these chairs go on sale at Costco, I'm gonna get one for each of the kids. Yeah. Because I loved having the tray, and I knew as they get older, they'll like having the tray too. So now we have 5. They take up a ton of space in the car. But
that was a necessity to you. That was something that you learned, and now that's your preference. And in contrast, my husband and I even kind of took turns sitting in your kids' chairs when they weren't in use, because they were all hanging out in small little groups together. But we didn't like the tray because we couldn't get close,
Right, and you can't scoot in close. I mean, you can put the tray down.
Yeah, I did learn that, but for me, the seat on that chair, just a personal thing, was too hard.
Oh, interesting.
It turns out I like the traditional camping chair, the expandable chair.
Yeah, that doesn't take up any space. It's like almost like an umbrella chair.
Exactly.
Call it that.
Yeah. And so you still have the cup holders, and then there's different kinds that have like the little pack on the back where you can slide things in. So you could put your book back there, once it's open. It's just like a little
and it's netted. Solid, right? It's solid. So it's kind of nice.
It's all canvas.
You could put your sweatshirt behind you and not have it fall off. Where mine, if I put my sweatshirt behind me, it could fall off between
there's the slat or the opening. Yeah. So, it's just all personal preference. And so I don't think my husband has quite found his ideal chair, because what he liked about yours was the firmness of the actual seat.
Interesting.
But I'm short. I'm 5'2", almost. And so for me, when I had my back against the back of your chairs, my feet didn't touch the ground.
Oh.
And that's okay. That's a normal experience for someone my size.
That's funny.
But that's a personal thing for me, whereas for my tall husband, he loved it. He felt like it was the right size for him. You know, and so then once he and I had that conversation, I was looking at pictures of your kids, and they were all sat at the front of it. But they're kids. They don't care about the backrest the way that we adults need that at night when we're hanging out.
And they have the little kid chairs, but the thing is, we bought them too small for them, and we knew we're going to have to buy them new ones anyways, and to buy them the medium size to have them grow out in a couple of years.
Yeah, just
and those chairs that we bought, I think were like $40 to $50 each.
Yeah.
So we're like, if we're going to spend money, let's just get the chair they'll want when they're older, maybe.
Right.
And there we go.
Yeah.
But that's just one example of how you can personalize the necessity for a little more comfort.
Exactly. But yes, chairs are definitely a necessity.
Yeah.
After your tent and your sleeping stuff, you definitely need chairs to sit in. Not every campsite's going to have the picnic tables, and then the picnic table is never by your fire.
Oh,
so if you don't have a chair, then you can't sit by your fire.
Yeah, with everyone else. Right. I would have major FOMO if
you had to stand
if I didn't bring my chair.
Yeah.
So also what I think is necessity is a lantern.
Sure.
So we have this battery operated one. I would love it if it had a little solar top here and then it could have been solar. Yeah. But I like it because this lit up the table, and then I brought it into the tent with us.
Right.
And you just take out the batteries when you're not using it in between camping trips.
Yeah, best practices, don't leave batteries in your camping
Well,
stuff.
they'll ruin the equipment as well as the batteries, right?
Yep.
We've been on the same batteries for probably 3 or 4 camping trips at least.
Because you don't use them very much.
Yeah. So I really like that. And then I also have if you have kids, you need them to have a light. Yeah. So you need them to have a headlamp or something that they can carry or something they wear around their neck. I mean, those glow sticks actually worked really well.
Yeah. You kept track of the kids just fine with the glow stick, and it lit up enough because, you know, you're talking no ambient light from cities.
Right.
So it's really dark when you're out. And it was even full moon when we were out.
Yeah.
And you still needed the light, and you could still see a lot with it. Yeah.
And they had the thick glow sticks. It wasn't those little skinny ones. It was the really thick ones that you would wear for Halloween or something. Right. And then I actually think, did we already talk about the walkie-talkies? We did. We already talked about the walkie-talkies. Toilet paper. So not always will there be toilet paper. So you just keep one in your bin. I think that's a necessity for the minimalist.
I keep one in my car. I keep it wrapped in a plastic bag, and so then it inevitably comes camping with me because you just never want to be without toilet paper.
So why do you keep it in your car, though?
It started during the toddler phase when I had the baby potty in the car when I was potty training my oldest. And so then it was like, what if she did have a potty emergency at some point? You just never know what you need. I mean, you could just keep paper towels in your car too for stuff, but it just became you never know if you're at a gas station bathroom.
Oh yeah, totally.
There's always the reason.
You're just prepared, girl.
Yeah.
So one or two other things are wipes. I think we were all using wipes, whether it was to clean our hands or our feet at the tent, or our stuff, or chairs or whatever. Wipes are really great, and you have the water wipes, which I like the best because you're not using like a baby fragrant thing on everything, and you just need some water, you know. And then a roll of paper towels, which you mentioned. The roll of paper towels is really great for cleaning up messes. I mean, you need one roll of paper towel per table, basically. And then we have other items on our minimalist and on our overpacker list. We have 2 lists for you on our blog available as a download, a minimalist list and then an overpacker list.
And it's our complete camping list down to the batteries, the size of batteries, everything, Ziploc bags. So we're just talking about the highlights right now, the things that really, stick out in our minds. But the list is quite complete.
Yeah. And places even for you to write in anything of comfort to you that we don't have on there.
Yeah, so you print it out and that's your packing list. You can cross out what doesn't apply to you if that's the case, and you shouldn't miss anything when you're camping.
Yeah, and I want to point out some fun things. One is this is the basket I took. It's empty right now, but that I took on our last camping trip. And what's really so we have a rule: no kids are allowed in our family tent.
Right.
So what I do is right at the opening of the tent. So right where you would unzip it, this is sitting right there, and it has our walkie-talkies, our headlamps, glow sticks, games, whether it's like cards or whatever. Bug spray, sunblock, extra wipes.
Yes.
trying to think of what else was in there. Did I say flashlights? Mm-hmm. I have little instruments because if it was ever a celebration, we would have a way to do a little instrument. And it all can fit in here. Oh, and keys. We throw the keys in there too.
Yeah.
So nothing is spread throughout the camping tent. It's all in here. So that way if you need something, it's in here.
Right.
And hopefully it makes it back in there if they take it out. If they don't just throw it in, it goes. Yeah. If they don't bury it and it comes back in the tent, it goes in here. And so then you can always find it.
Right.
And in the middle of the night when you need a lantern, it's in here. Right. And so the only thing that's not in here is the kids' own little book that they read at night, or which that's really helpful when you have kids to say, make sure you bring something that they can do when they wake up in the morning. Because we have a rule, our kids cannot go outside the tent unless one of us go outside.
Right.
I do not want to make other people responsible for my children.
No.
Unless like I look out and they're like, oh yeah, it's fine, you know, but they need to bring something that they can do until either Marcus or I will go out with them, or no, we're coming out in like 5 minutes or something, you know? Yep. So, but I love the tent I call it the tent basket. It could be something like this that's like fabric that you can like throw in the wash.
Yes.
Or it could be a really cute basket that you, I don't know, hose down. And then in the past, I've also used our tent bin. So we have a tent bin of all the stuff I mentioned, plus batteries, towels, whatever, go in that tent bin. The lanterns are in there. We have a fan too that we don't ever use, but that goes in there.
Funny. Yeah.
Everything that we could use on the tent is in our tent bin. So I could technically use that, but it was always so hard to find stuff because it was mixed in with stuff we weren't using. Yeah. So now the bin goes back in the car and we just have a basket.
Perfect.
So that is my big hack for tent organization. And then when it comes to clean up, the first morning, all of this goes back, and we get the bin out of the car. This all goes back in the bin. The tent is all packed up before I ever walk out for breakfast. And so that's what I like too. Everything's handled very quickly and easily.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's just anything else with how to camp. Oh, meals. So just real quick, everybody needs to bring their own water.
Yes.
So that's something people, I think, probably more likely forget. And you need to bring water to drink because you're used to having a sink. You're used to having, you know,
however your water dispenser is at home.
Yeah. So you don't have that there, and people aren't going to want to share their water with you because that water supplies their family.
Right. They brought enough for themselves.
Yeah. And so just keep that in mind. When you go camping, everybody's bringing enough for themselves.
Right.
Unless you've agreed to share something and you're providing it all.
Right. And we didn't even plan this when the three families went camping this past weekend, but we all had the exact same setup. We had the 2.5 gallon water with the spigot, which has always been my go-to for camping.
Yeah.
And so it turned out perfect. We each brought one, maybe two, but
I just brought one.
We all went through it, and we went through every drop of water by the end of by the time we were packed up and the cars were leaving, every drop of water was used.
Yeah. And that's what the girls like going like that, you know, pulling spit out and putting their mouth under and barely getting some in their mouth. But so what I figured out, 3 families, 3 of those, 2 nights, 3 days. So I figured out for a family of like 4 or 5, you will go through one of those just yourself on a 2-night camping trip.
Here's my favorite little hack. Save one of those bottles when it's empty. And you fill it up with tap water. Because then you have your own little sink rinsing.
Genius.
Yeah. So that's my usual. I've been a little off my camping game because I don't do this regularly anymore, and it's just not a top priority when I knew there was a spigot right there by the campsite.
That's true, we were right there.
Yeah, so many campsites have a water spigot nearby. Sometimes it's 2 sites that share one, or, you know, kind of communal, and sometimes the bathrooms have a sink outside too, like with a big basin.
I like that.
For rinsing things out. For instance, too, again, this goes back to knowing the rules of the campsite. Our specific campsite asks you not to do the dishes, not to use like soap or rinse your dishes using the community spigots. You know, there's already problems with bees and that kind of thing. You don't want the animals to eat the food.
I went over and rinsed my tray, not with soap, but
right. Yeah.
But I did rinse it because I had
there's
meat
some
on
amount
it
of food that's going to get on the ground whether you meant to
there was
wash
no
the dishes
food on
or
it.
not.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just a matter of you know, kind of knowing what the go-to is. But another campsite I've been to, you had a sink to actually do your dishes in.
That's
so you could
cool.
use soap and all that stuff.
I wonder if that's more of the longer term, like, camping areas of a campsite?
Well, it was an actual sink, so they obviously had pipes and drainage and that kind of stuff. But where we were, we had the vault toilets, so the non-flushing toilets.
Yeah, it's an outhouse.
We didn't have any running water other than the spigot, so it had no drainage. So they don't want
that's true.
Your
and that's where the bees
not
were.
Good. Yeah, they want the water. Yeah, so that's something to kind of like be aware of too. But anyway, that goes to the camp rules. But definitely having so when you wash up at night, normally, so I'm at desert camping, there's no bathrooms. So desert camping, you go out and park in the middle of nowhere, right? And so if you don't have a trailer, you don't have running water. And so that was how we would brush our teeth and wash our face, was having the 2.5 gallon full of tap water.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's great. I had the Burt's Bees facial wipes, which I didn't use.
Yeah.
And I never took my toothbrush out of my bag.
We took a group run, a girl run to the bathrooms both nights before we tucked in for bed.
I know, but I didn't think to ever bring my toothbrush.
Right.
And then I see you brushing your teeth. I was like, oh, I didn't even think to it's in my toiletries bag, which is in my tent.
Yeah, I forgot the first night, so I didn't bring it the first night, but my daughter and I did brush our teeth, at the campsite.
Yeah, that must have felt good though.
It always does.
Had a sink to do it. Yeah. So the other thing is, can you imagine not having a trash bag at your campsite?
No.
So those are things you might not think of, right?
Right.
So I actually keep a roll of the black Glad trash bags from Costco so I have a kitchen box, and the kitchen box is only paper goods.
Right.
And then it also has a roll of the Glad black trash bags. So I know I'm not going to run out.
Right.
And it's not something that I have to remember. So yeah, it's a whole bin I have. It's a whole thing of the Kirkland utensils. I replace the plates when I come home from camping and do all that. But, and I put it all back in. So it's packed to the brim for what's barely used.
Right.
But then I don't have to remember.
Right. We talked about that. There's just different ways, because I was saying how I think I want to, I don't pack like big supplies of that stuff anyway, but I want to break out my boxes a little bit more specifically, and so that they can be smaller and be the more heavy duty ones, because I've gone through lots of bins over the last few years. And so I was talking about how, I like to just plan for what I need for that trip, and a little extra for sharing with people who forget or for the unknown stuff.
Yeah.
But keeping a big supply just means you need a bigger bin, and a lot of times, no big deal. The real estate is what it is, and if it can be filled, it should be.
Right. Why not?
So there's just different methods for doing that, and it's just a personal preference. Like for you, that's ease of mind for you.
Yeah.
And
just throw it in, and
it means it's less preparation at the pack up phase, whereas that's kind of where I fell apart this particular trip was, I didn't really dig deep into my box, because I was like, oh, I'm sure I did it last year.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't. I had a 1.5-year-old last year.
Yeah.
Who knows what I did? I don't.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's a lot for people to just think about and consider. Yeah. And the other thing about how to camp is just knowing the rules. And there's just some nuances to keep in mind, I think, is that people are there to get away from technology. Not everybody, but a lot of people are. To get away from technology and to be in nature and appreciate nature. Sure. And so to just maybe check with your fellow campers, if you're going to want to play music all day, maybe just check with them. Like if you're going to do it on a big speaker, it's different if it's just like in your chair or in your ear or something. But if it's blaring, we could hear it from a whole nother campsite that wasn't part of our group, and it's not necessarily considerate, but of course everyone camps differently. But just to keep in mind those nuances that the way we each camp may be different from somebody else.
So whether you plan to camp with somebody else or not, just being aware of etiquette, campground etiquette, and you'd never want to get on the camp host's bad side either. So knowing those rules is really helpful. Yeah. Because, they're going to start keeping an eye on you if they see you breaking a rule that seems pretty blatant. Yeah. So noise is definitely a big one. And, and then there's just the common courtesy if you are camping with people, just kind of laying the ground rules. What are the ground rules? What are things that we are okay or not okay with? And it sounds kind of crazy, but you want everyone to really enjoy your time. And so some of those things are important to talk about. Do you want your kids behaving this way? Like what's acceptable for the kids? Or how far are we all comfortable with them going? Right. Because if one parent gets asked, is it okay if we all go over here? And that parent answers, then the other parents didn't maybe have the opportunity, and this wasn't discussed. And so, you know, I mean,
it's kind of hard with like s'mores.
Crazy.
Like, like I only wanted my kids to have one that first night, but then I didn't even like. It's hard when the kids all have different rules. So then the next night I felt bad that I'd said only one. So then I was like, well, we all want two, right? And then I was like, wait, did they want two?
Right.
You know, I don't know. Like I'm trying to gauge, you know, what the parents want. Then inevitably it's just, the kids aren't going to all be treated the same, and the kids just have to deal with that. Yeah.
And that's okay. Yeah, exactly. That's definitely something we talk to our kids about all the time.
Yeah.
No, every family has their own rules. We have our own rules, and I'm sorry if it's not what you want it to be. But we are your parents.
Right.
Yeah.
And oh, there was something else about that. I can't remember now, but I want to mention that we had someone bring hammocks.
Oh, yeah.
And that was amazing. That really kept them occupied a whole day. It was just incredible. And so there's some fun things like that you can bring to keep the kids engaged. And I like the idea of introducing different activities, to just making them available different days. They don't have to do it at all. But like the first night, they were just excited to be with their flashlights and their glow sticks.
Right.
So we didn't need to do anything else. The next day, they have all 16 waking hours. So having the hammocks available, having the slack line available, having the we set up some art supplies for those who wanted to do art. We had a couple kids who didn't. Who cares? Like we don't care.
Yeah, my daughter and your son are like, no.
Yeah, and we don't care. We just provide different activities.
Right.
Some may have wanted to go for a hike. Some may have not, but we all ended up going.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, and the nature hunt. One of the moms planned a nature hunt. And the kids really got into it.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, and then that was done before they even got to the top. So they still had the typical hiking experience, and then they had that little special moment that engaged them in nature, kind of like a Charlotte Mason way.
Right, and that's a great thing too, is a lot of campgrounds have their own activities that are specific to the area. So you don't have to always go through all that searching and research by yourself. And then there's also those junior ranger programs that are great. So certain campgrounds do the junior ranger program, and you can figure out, you know, you earn badges and stuff like that. So it's actually pretty cool to do that.
Especially if you go often enough, then it's like we're at this campsite a lot. How many times are we going to do the same hike? Then the junior ranger program would be a great.
Yeah, it was really fun. My sister and I loved it. When we went camping for the week-long trip up to the Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park area, because if you collected a certain number of pieces of trash, then you would earn these badges or whatever. And then they had the group amphitheater campfires. And so at the amphitheater, it was like this whole event that you would go to.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was just part of your evening.
Yeah.
Probably before you build your fire at your own personal campground. So you're not leaving it unattended, of course. But it was just really fun because then they would award you. You'd come up on stage. I love it. Yeah, and then you'd sing community songs. Super cheesy. Not every family is going to want to do that.
I can't imagine them doing that anymore. I mean,
they still do. The campground that we're going to in October has the amphitheater.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
And I keep forgetting what I want to say because I'm so enthralled by what you're saying.
Anyways. Well, we were talking about, the fun little magical things that you can bring.
Oh, someone brought rainbow fire.
Yeah.
And so that was really cool. The fire has like turquoise and that's a neat experience. Now,
I've never seen that before.
If we wanted to look it up ahead of time, then like I might do it this time, or if I was going with just my family. I don't want to insert myself into a group of people with that, but I could look up ahead of time why that happens, and then while they're looking at it happen, we can talk about that.
Sure.
So as homeschoolers, we're kind of always educating.
The learning moments.
Yeah, and talking about the things as they happen, and they don't even know they're learning. They're just experiencing. And so that's a super cool way to do that. Look up things ahead of time that you're going to use.
And we like to bring games. When we went camping for the first time together last year, we kind of talked about what games we were going to bring. And so they didn't ask for the games at any point, but they were all awake by 7 a.m. I think our last day. Yeah, our last morning. And we knew we were going to want to pack up before really getting too involved in breakfast before it got hot. So I got out the games. and I brought them over to a picnic table in a campsite that was not being used. So they were a little bit away from us, and because we just weren't ready to let them loose on the hammocks again, where there's shrieks and screaming and laughter, and that's awesome, but not at 7 a.m.
Yeah. Right.
Some people might have the luxury of sleeping in while they camp, but parents
don't expect to.
Yeah, but don't
Do
ever
not expect to
to
sleep in when you're camping.
Yeah, you're usually up with the sun.
Yeah.
But anyway, the kids had a blast playing games, and that was just a really magical moment that they were there and that they could.
Okay, so another thing that I think is super cute that our friends brought this last time were Twinkle Lights.
Yes.
And so right when we got home, I ordered solar powered Twinkle Lights.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so I'm hoping they will work, and it came with 2 strands, but what our friends did is they wrapped it around the tree.
Yes.
And so then you always could see where your campsite was, even if you kind of walked away, like the kids would be able to find us.
Right.
The other thing I want to do is I want to light up our tent at night. So I was thinking specifically if we're not with a group. When you're with a group, you stay up late together with the group.
Sure.
But when you're just with your family, my guess is you might get in the tent together, do some read aloud, do some discussion of big ideas and prayer and whatever family time you want to have. And when we do that, I want the Twinkle Lights for inside the tent as like this special moment together. So I think that could add some magic in a very simple, easy way. And those Twinkle Lights are so small. I don't know how big the solar powered plate is, but it's like a stake in the ground. So I'm guessing it's just like a ground stake with a little square. And so that should be pretty easy to pack and fit in I would probably put it in my tent bin.
Right. Yes.
Not my kitchen bin. I have another bin that is tarps.
Right.
And I found an air mattress in there. I'm like, is this the one that had a hole in it?
Right. Maybe it's got to go.
Yeah. I don't know why that's still in there. But so anyways, so it definitely fit in our tent bin. So that's a little extra, a tip of more fun.
Yeah. Awesome.
So should we go over some extra tips and tricks?
Yeah, let's do it. You have some packing tips when it comes to food.
Oh, so for coolers.
Yes.
I have an experience previously where I was like, I will bring donuts for breakfast the next morning. Yeah. Everyone was super stoked. I got their whole order. And who knew when you put donuts in a cooler, they get waterlogged and soggy. So no one had breakfast that morning, and luckily we were doing beach camping where there was like literally a McDonald's and a Starbucks right outside the campsite.
Not a big deal. Yeah.
So they could just run out and get it, and I think someone ran out and got donuts for us all. I'm like, well, if I could have just done that, so don't put bread items in there. You can have a separate cooler bag for your that animals won't get into. I've made the mistake of putting our hot dog buns and things like, and chips and stuff in just grocery bags and tying a knot, and the critters definitely get in there and they eat it all.
Right.
But in these refrigerator bags from like Costco that zipper tight close and they're super thick, I left ours out. The critters did not get to it, but you could also just keep it in your car.
Exactly.
And so, but yeah, no bread items in there, and then do not keep so I didn't want the marshmallows to melt.
Right.
So, or get sticky together. So I stuck them in the cooler, but because I hadn't thought to bring rubber bands or twisty ties, which are now on my list.
Yes.
Since I hadn't thought to bring those.
But you do have Ziplocs.
I don't think I had a big enough one.
Oh, you didn't have the gallon size.
Yeah, I think I only had the little ones. Yeah. So, I was using all the big ones or something.
Yeah.
I actually had extras that I found later when I was unpacking, but
I definitely had some. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I couldn't put them. So
right. It just it wasn't a high
priority.
priority.
I put them on the top. I didn't think when
people
go digging for drinks that they would let them fall to the bottom. I didn't.
You gave
think
too
that
much
was
credit.
Yeah, I didn't think that was going to happen. So they got all soggy and they started disintegrating. So I got them out and I set out each one on a plate that wasn't disintegrated yet, so it could dry. And then I just like I did put it in a big Ziploc at that point. So anyway.
Just, that night, the night after the first,
I didn't think probably, So anyway, so be careful what you put in your cooler. What does go well in the cooler is like a Ziploc with your deodorant in it, and any other type of toiletry that could melt, or if
Chapstick,
it's too hot, it would, ruin it. So I've even thought of duct taping it to the inside lid just to see if that'll work well.
Right, if it works.
So then it won't get lost down.
Yeah.
And then I like the idea of a second smaller cooler for drinks, because every time you open your cooler, you're letting the cold air out, and when you have meats and cheeses in there, it's spoiling it.
Right.
So if you can only get in there for your food at mealtime or a special snack, then it'll stay colder. But when you have your drinks in there, you're going back and forth way too much.
Right.
And the ice is melting. And I also want to try an ice block for my cooler next time, because that melts a lot slower.
It does, but it's just harder to pack around because it's solid.
It's so big.
Yeah.
Well, because we just went ice blocking the other day, and I was like, oh, this would be awesome for a cooler.
Yeah, because it's like that whole, the sand analogy. Remember the jar? There's that.
It fits around it.
Yeah. So if you have the sand in first, which you can't put the the ice that can kind of mold in around what you've already packed.
You can pack a lot more. Yeah.
Just easier for how much you can put in there. And then if you're camping somewhere where there's a store, you
just go like the guys left. I went and got another bag of ice.
It's part of the experience.
Yeah.
Every time I've gone camping, that's what my dad's had to do. Like it's just
and the local little Ranger store is pretty cute.
We did it last year where we went there, and we went into the nature center, and that was super fun with the kids. But I know it was open this year, but with COVID, it was just like, the kids are having too much fun.
We were all happy.
Yeah, they weren't bored at all. So I was like, you know what? Let's not interrupt them and make them pile into a car.
Right.
Because then we would have had to each take our separate cars.
Right.
And it just becomes this.
Okay, so how hot is it in these sleeping bags?
These are definitely warm.
For those who can't see us, we are inside a tent. We have our lantern, and we're in sleeping bags.
Yes, silly.
I know. So I have another tip I want to share. When you are staying at a campsite that has basically outhouses as their bathroom, and you take your 5-year-old in the middle of the night and you put a headlamp on her, and then you go to the bathroom, and you say, it'll be fine. And then she goes there and she has her headlamp, and then she looks down at the toilet. It seriously is the most illuminated poop I've ever seen.
Traumatizing.
But it's like chemically, it's like a swamp.
It's a porta potty.
Grossness.
It's a porta potty.
Yeah, it's a porta potty. So, of course, she freaks out. This is in the middle of the night. And I'm like, note to self, the headlamp was not the way to go. I should have just had my own flashlight.
Right.
Shined it, on a wall so she could see, and then had her sit on the potty. And how scary is it to this little, well, actually she was 4 years old.
Yeah, it was last year.
To this little, how scary would it be for this little body? Because I remember wondering if I would fall into a toilet when I was little.
Yeah.
So just remember about your expectations with bathroom and stuff to just coddle them a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, this year, I drove them to the flushable toilets whenever they needed to go, because I knew, yes, it's a great skill to be uncomfortable using porta potties, but do I need to do that with my 4 and 5-year-old and then my 8-year-old?
Right.
No, they can get used to that when they get a little older.
And we didn't plan this trip very far in advance because coronavirus and all kinds of weird stuff. So this was a kind of a last minute thing, settling on a date. A lot of it was because of my own dance schedule and everything being up in the air for so long. So scheduling it meant that by the time we settled on dates, there were no reservations left. So everything was fully booked except for the first come, first serve sites, which only have the vault toilets. The rest of the campground that we happened to be at had flushable toilets, but that's definitely a very important thing to check out if that's very important to you. If you don't want to have the vault toilet because that's not good for you, then make sure you understand the legend on the map for your campsites, because it will designate what is what. And then if a shower is important, many campsites have at least one shower on the premises. Yeah. So if you want to be
bring
nearby,
quarters,
bring
quarters.
Usually quarters. Some of them have tokens too.
Okay.
So yeah, you definitely want to just look up all of that information. It should all be readily available on the website for where you're camping.
And it was no big deal for I'd say, okay, I tell my kids, at least, I said, okay, this is the last time I'm going to the flushable toilets. It's, 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Come, because I'm not going to take you in the middle of the night and have you freaked out, about a non-flushable toilet.
Right.
So they even when they say they don't have to go, you say, I don't care, you go. And they
Right.
still go. They still needed to go, and you just get that handled and it's pleasant all around and it doesn't smell and
Right,
it's just,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah, it's easy peasy.
Yeah.
And we went as a group. It was like a potty party.
Yeah, a potty party. I love it.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the conversation about the bins.
Oh, yes.
Because we keep mentioning them, and I just want to be a little more specific that we're just talking about how you store your camping stuff. And so many people use a bin system that they either created themselves or that they found somewhere. And my mom always did it that way, so that was definitely how we did it. There was the gear box, and then there was the food box. So she even did all of the dry food in totes as well. So there's lots of different ways, and I think that
Tote bags or tote bins?
Tote, the bins. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just being more specific, like the cheaper plastic ones, so they're more the totes. And what I want to switch to is actually the more heavy duty ones, because like I said, the thinner plastic ones, they definitely have a life. They don't seal all around the edge either.
Yeah, no, they don't.
And so I think I want, the heavy duty style ones, and I actually want them a little smaller. And then I want to have them categorized. So you have multiple ones already. I have kind of my one camping bin, and it has my lanterns and the headlamps and my cooking stuff, and
unbelievable. But it takes up less room in the car though,
right,
too,
which is a necessary thing for me, because we had a small car that we were camping in for the longest time. And I said this at the beginning, I was very much the minimalist camper because I was very comfortable with it, so I knew how many plates I was going to need. I knew all, and I wasn't always going camping with other people, and so I didn't have the need to have extras just in case.
Right.
And now I love that idea of being generous. I used a lot of your stuff this weekend because I didn't check my bins, but I want the separated bins and to have them labeled and all of that stuff. So when we were talking about bins, that's what we're talking about, organizing them in a way that makes sense for you to keep like with like and to be easily accessible. And especially now, I see much more of the importance of having kids and a kid who's old enough to go get things herself.
Oh yeah, it's
you
great.
need to go into this bin. This is what I'm talking about. It should say this on it, and this is where you should find that stuff.
Right.
Because eventually she'll know where to look for it.
And what I liked about our kitchen bin, I just kept that where we had our kitchen,
Right.
which was at the picnic table. And then the tent bin, I emptied out what I needed, put it in my basket.
Right.
Tent bin went back in the car.
Right.
But I could have just kept the tent bin in the
If you had more
tent.
real estate in your
Right,
tent, that
right.
would have been fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So everything is based on your own personal setup. And this is just kind of the systems that we really like. But just wanted to touch on those bins for a second.
And I like it when the bins all match, because then not just aesthetically, but they pile up efficiently.
They fit on top of each other.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to go for 3 heavy duty bins.
Like the yellow and black ones.
Yeah, that are slightly smaller. So I don't know how many gallons, the more standard large tote is, but it's just a little too large.
Because you want to be able to lift it too.
Yeah.
But could it fit do you have a lantern like this?
Ours are smaller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I have a bunch of the smaller ones, which makes more sense, you know? This was nice for like a whole table or whatever, but it does take up a lot of space and you have to have a big bin to do it.
Right.
But I think what's nice about the smaller bins is then it's easier to carry. I definitely had to have Marcus carry the bins for me.
Right.
So
yeah, that's definitely a lot, to do with it too, is if I want my kids to be able to help, things have to be well suited to them. So I do want to do the smaller ones, and then it's just easier playing Tetris in the car, fitting them all in. So even if you have more, the smaller size means you can rotate them differently and stack them differently. And so there's just a little bit more wiggle room. And then if you need to add another one for a different category and break things down even into, you can eventually do that. So just some different ideas for different things. And I may come back and say I like the bigger bin better. I don't know.
Well, I kind of been thinking I would like a small bin just for the utensils.
Sure.
And then you're not taking out the utensils all the time to get to the plates.
Right.
I mean, this is all just nitty pitty, but
exactly.
The
but
more
just
you
those little things.
Yeah, they make a difference, and the more you go, the more you want to make it more efficient and easier.
Yeah. Because see, I could imagine in a small bin, if you pack kind of just what you know you're going to need plus a few extras. You can have the plates tilted up. You can have, you know, the silverware separated and up, you know, almost like in little pencil cups or something, so that it's easy for everyone to see and to grab. But that's not how you would store your bulk collection. That's not easy or efficient for space. But, you know, anything that you can do to make it easy, especially when you have kids, is really key. Yeah, because otherwise, Mom, where's this? Mom, you know, and then they can't open the bin.
So, anything else for camping with kids?
Yeah, I had one more.
Okay.
And so this brings us back to what you can get in our downloadable. So again, we're going to have a link to the blog post that's already up on our site. And then we have the downloadable packet. So it has your minimal list, your overpacker planning list, and it has all of our kitchen tips and our storage tips and everything.
And meal planning.
And your meal planning,
we didn't really talk about that because it's there.
Yeah, we mentioned, you know, the different ways that you can do meals. And so, you know, we go into much more detail here about different options and different ways of doing it. And then I just wanted to mention too that this time, one of the benefits of doing this is giving my daughter the opportunity to pack for herself and to figure it out. So I made her a list. We kind of went through her list together. I printed it for her, went through the list together, and then I left her to do it, and then I didn't double check it. I offered to. She did ask me to, and so I did look through there, but I purposefully didn't want to double check it and go through things. And so,
except you want to make sure she has a jacket, right?
Yes, but that wasn't in her pack. You know, like our big jackets won't fit in our duffel bags or whatever, because we have the small bags for everything else. You know, but if she forgot her toothbrush, she forgot her toothbrush. I know it's not the end of the world. If she had to wear dirty clothes all weekend, it's not the end of the world.
She can wear the same socks 3 times.
Exactly. They might not be fun, but it's part of the lesson, and it's part of the responsibility. So that's, again, it goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning. It's the benefit of being able to do this and doing it often, and them learning their own personal preference. How can she learn a personal preference if I'm doing it all for her all the time?
Yeah, I love that.
And, you know, now she's old enough to really get it. And so the second day when we woke up, she couldn't find another pair of shorts, and she, you know, immediately, well, you double checked it, right? And I was like, well, if it's there, it's there, you know. But then we get home, so she wore her dirty shorts, which was fine. It didn't bother her dirty at all.
All the time.
Yeah, what does it matter if it was dirty from yesterday or if it's going to get dirty in 5 minutes?
Yeah, exactly.
So we get home and we're emptying out, you know, so that's actually another kind of tip we didn't talk about. I always bring either a garbage bag or some kind of stuff bag for the dirty clothes. I do not want those dirty camping clothes touching any clean leftover clothes. Or even in my bag. I don't want it in there.
I don't want to have to wash my bag. And then when you get home, you just lift up the trash bag and all the clothes go into the wash.
Exactly.
It's great.
So I knew whatever was left over in her backpack should be clean. So as I was going through it, there were the shorts. There was something else she said she didn't have, another like tank top. So what it came down to was she was so excited to go play and be with her friends that she couldn't be bothered to really even search in a half-empty backpack.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But that's the whole thing, is I was able to show her, you did pack it.
Right.
You just didn't see it. And this is life lessons, man.
Yeah.
You just got to figure it out.
So that's one of the great things about camping.
Yep.
Yeah, and John Muir has a couple great quotes about just being out in nature, and I'll read the shorter one if I can get it there. My sweaty hands they're not letting me get there. Okay, everybody needs beauty as well as bread, places to play in and pray in, where nature may heal and give strength to body and soul.
That's awesome.
So he always has such really great quotes.
Yep.
So camping's a great thing to do during COVID, during 2020.
Yeah.
If it is a big budgetary item, unless you can borrow.
Right.
To start. But then once you have your supplies to go camping, it's about $35 a night.
Yep.
And you can work your way across the state if you can, coordinate the campsites accordingly.
Yeah.
Instead of hotels, you could really see the country with camping.
Right. I have it kind of on my bucket list to start hitting all the national parks. You know, we have National Parkopoly.
Oh,
the
yeah,
game.
you do.
And I have a few really awesome national park books that I love, and I have a national parks game we haven't even busted out yet.
Yeah.
So it's definitely on my list of things in the future to really be able to do the national parks. And both of my kids, but I'm speaking mostly about my oldest one, but for her to really just know the different national parks and to be excited about that, and to understand, even from a historical perspective, people always knew that these were going to be special places, and so they've been preserved. And so then that's part of the respecting nature and respecting the rules of campsites, because it's not just for your own personal enjoyment, it's to preserve what's there.
Right.
You know, and then for instance, you know, you quoted John Muir. I know you've been to Muir Woods, but also up in the Sequoias, where we plan to take a trip hopefully in the next year or two. You can walk and see the cabins that John Muir stayed in and that he built.
So cool.
Yeah, so there's so many cool things to go see at these national parks, and you know, I don't want that to be lost during childhood, because adulthood can be kind of unpredictable in the sense that, you know, you might not be able to get to these places. Who knows what life is going to look like, but for my kids, I'm able to provide these experiences, and so, you know, I hope to make it to Yellowstone someday.
Well, there's a National Parks passport.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So we got ours when we were at the Grand Canyon last December, and you can get a number of Grand Canyon stamps, because any of the historical sites you go to, you can get. So that's fun too. It's not just I went to the Grand Canyon, one stamp. You can get it at the different places along the rim. So that was really fun. So I have that, and we were in Alaska the year before, and they actually had a stamp for you to stamp it, and we saw people stamping their actual passports.
They didn't understand.
I was like, I don't think you're supposed to stamp your actual passport.
Yeah.
But I was so bummed we didn't have a parks passport, because we were, even though it was it was in Alaska, so it was still a national park.
Yeah.
So it was just like really awesome to get it when we were in Grand Canyon. I'm like, okay, now we have it.
Yeah.
So, okay, should we go to our joys?
Yes.
Should I go?
Yeah, you go.
Okay, so when we were camping, I'll do a camping one. I just thought of it off the cuff. The girls, our 8-year-olds, and then my 5-year-old, and then a 3-year-old, they sat around in their little chairs, like separate from us. We're sitting around the fire at night, and then they have this little breakout room of their own little chairs in a circle, and they're telling each other scary stories. And they're listening to each other, they're taking turns, and they're doing creative storytelling. And that just brought me a lot of joy that they were creating their own experience. And as homeschool moms, that's what we want our kids doing. We want them having creative play and coming up, just enhancing and enriching their experience, doing what they want to be doing. And you can't teach that. You can't, they're learning from each other. And if we had told them, now it's time to tell scary stories, they'd have been like, no, thank you. But they thought of that on their own and did that on their own. And I just loved that. And they're laughing at each other's, or even my 5-year-old comes running over and she's like, hold me, cuddle me. It was scary.
It was scary. Yeah. Well, that's probably my kid.
Yeah, but they're still innocent, scary stories. Like our kids have not seen like horror movies, Yeah,
she hasn't seen horror movies, but she knows a lot. So, if you hear anything scary, I apologize.
Oh, I wished I had listened in. Actually, like I wish I would have just sat like right by them, and then had us tell our own in a non.
That used to be super fun. My mom would always do a variation of an Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, cool.
She would pick like Telltale Heart or something like that.
Telltale Heart. Right. So good. I read that when I was teaching junior high kids. I read that to them and they loved it.
Right. Yeah, it made me super excited. And then she handed me the Edgar Allan Poe book. When I got back, I was maybe 10. And so it was really fun. So it was a little thing that came to her while she was camping. Okay. My joy. So camping also. But it was super fun to watch my little guy, 2.5, have a blast with the other 3-year-old that was there. Actually, he had a blast with everybody.
Totally.
So he's definitely my little social butterfly. You know, he doesn't take too long to warm up to other people, and he likes relationships. So he was jumping in your husband's lap, and I kept saying,
I know, that's adorable.
If that's too much, just let me know. But, you know, I don't know, you know, you never know how much it's feeding somebody. But it looked like your husband was having a blast. I'm like, okay.
Well, our kids aren't that size anymore, so it's always nice to get to hug a kid, you know, that size.
And then my husband was even saying, oh, I want our kids to have, you know, as many dads as possible, you know, because it's just an important part of life, you know, having your village, so to speak.
I remember when he was saying that, like dads and moms, like people, if you can't go to your parents about something, you can go to the next best thing.
Right, and not everyone has aunt and uncles or aunt and uncles that they're close enough with or have the same values, beliefs, or whatever it is. And so it's just really sweet to watch my son develop these relationships. But with the 3-year-old that was there, you know, they have definitely interacted at different coop group things in the past, but they're so little, they're not really friends yet. Right. But they definitely hit it off after a while, and they started racing each other because my son's obsessed with cars and raced cars, and so they started racing. I don't know if our little friend even realized he was calling them race cars, but
I didn't know that either.
He considered himself a race car, so they were racing.
I didn't realize that. I thought they were
just running back and forth, and inevitably he fell and got hurt, and she was really concerned about him, and you know, he's dusting it off so he can keep going, and it's just really neat to watch that continued development, and to watch that expand beyond our own family and beyond our, you know, those kinds of things, and to see him have his own really great time.
And someone like close in age too.
Yeah. And so that's somebody hopefully he'll continue to bond with our coop group. You know, so now, you know, my daughter's got a solid group of friends, and I'm watching him start to have these friends, and so then they saw each other at the beach the next day and didn't play though. So
funny.
Because he doesn't like the sand, so he didn't want to go play in the sand with her, and then eventually
she was like trying to go in the water, and
they had different goals that day.
His rain boots on.
He has his rain boots for the sand because he can't hang. But he made friends with one of our other little boys who's 3.5, so that was fine too.
Yeah. All right, so that's how to camp. It was quite the thorough doozy. Yes. But I know camping can be really scary for people, and especially with kids when you're in the early stages of parenthood. Right. So.
And sometimes you never know what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
We learn something new every time we go. And, you know, in fact, we have our own coop group camp adventure coming up, and we don't know what to expect. Yeah. I don't know what to expect. I can give all these bits of advice and help any of our friends who've never camped but want to try. Yeah. You know, and then obviously I don't have too much experience with group camping with kids. You know, I group camped as a kid. Yeah. But I don't know how the collective group did later. So hopefully we'll be back with a follow-up in a few months about group camping and what we've learned, what worked and what didn't work, and what we would advise other co-op groups to do.
Well, that was fun. We got to relive our whole thing and our whole camping moments. And
that's right.
And hopefully that helped all of you guys.